Thanks to the organizers for inviting me. So I start. In his book, The Second World War, Winston Churchill describes how in 1935, Pierre Laval, the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, who was negotiating a treaty of mutual assistance, asked the Soviet leader, "Can't you do something to encourage religion and the Catholics in Russia? It would help me so much with the Pope." "Oh ho," Stalin replied. "The Pope? How many divisions has he got?" In fact, ever since the Kingdom of Italy had annexed the Papal States in 1870, the Pope had no divisions at his disposal. This was also true for the time of the First World War. Neither did the Holy See have a territory nor the full reputation as a subject of international law. Although Italy guaranteed restricted sovereignty to the head of the Catholic Church, the so-called Roman question had not been resolved yet. When Italy entered the conflict in 1915, at the latest, everything was at stake for the Holy See. It could lose all its remaining autonomy in international affairs. It could, however, also put the Roman question on the agenda of the following peace negotiations. Still, the Holy See is different from other international political actors. In 1915, Pope Benedict XV publicly emphasized, "Whoever judges conscientiously will certainly not oversee that in the midst of this tremendous battle, the Apostolic See, although it might be in great distress, has to remain completely impartial. For the Roman Pontiff, inasmuch as he is the deputy of Jesus Christ, who died for each and every man, has to embrace all the combatants and one and the same sentiment of charity. Inasmuch as he is a common father of all Catholics, he has a great number of sons among each belligerent power, for whose salvation he has to strive equally and without distinction." The Pope's actions are guided by moral criteria. Profane interests of power are strange to him, at least according to the self-image of Pope Benedict XV. So, what is it that guided the Holy See's policy between 1914 and 1918? Humanitarianism or proper political interests? I will approach this question by dealing with two arguments. First, the Vatican's humanitarian help. Here I will restrict myself to the support of prisoners of war. Second, Pope Benedict's peace note de le début of the 1st of August 1917. I will focus on three questions. First, what expectations did the Holy See itself have when it initiated its humanitarian and peace efforts? Second, were these expectations fulfilled? And third, what were the long-term effects of this policy? In my talk, I will not only take a look at the Holy See's top-level decision-makers, I will include the implementation of its policy by the papal diplomacy as well. Therefore, I will consider the actions of the Munich nuncio, Eugenio Pacelli, as well, who was the Vatican's only representative to the Reich and therefore one of the most important diplomats of the Holy See. In doing so, I will mainly relate to the critical online edition of Nuncio Reports of Eugenio Pacelli, for which I work for. Not only does it provide important sources on the Vatican's policy during the First World War, it also grants interesting insights into the mentality of the German and Roman decision makers. The First World War not only resulted in an extent of death and destruction previously unknown, it also led to the imprisonment of millions of soldiers. Imprisonment, as well as the medical treatment and sustenance of these men, presented to all belligerent parties a massive challenge. For the first time in history, Neutral states and non-governmental organizations in particular played a crucial part in supplying the prisoners of war. In 1917 and 1918, Pacelli visited several prisoners' camps, as the nunciature of Munich was in Munich, and he primarily traveled Bavaria. However, between the 17th and 28th of September 1918, the Nuncio Pacelli toured the entire Reich in the true sense of the word. In the camps of Halle, Celle, Minden, Münster and Ellwangen, Pacelli celebrated Mass and lent a sympathetic ear to the worries of the soldiers. However, he not only supported them morally, he also visited the entire camp and had a word with the German camp commanders on behalf of the prisoners' complaints. In his report to Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Gaspari, the Pope's right-hand man, the Nuncio wrote, "Apart from the visits as such, made in the illustrious name of the Holy Father, the assistance and concern shown to these miserable men were of great comfort to the prisoners, who never forgot to express their animated recognition for the paternal zeal of His Holiness. At times, this gratitude was expressed with real enthusiasm, particularly in the camp of Ellwangen, where the words that I addressed to the prisoners were welcomed and interrupted by long and unanimous applause. The illustrious pontiff's zeal is all the more dear to the hearts of the Italians, inasmuch as they, as I was able to see everywhere, feel abandoned by their fatherland." During his German tour, the Italian prisoners of war were the prime center of Pacelli's attention. But also when he toured Bavaria and visited the camps, the Italians were an important object of the Holy See's charity. This was for two reasons. On the one hand, the Italian government and military command treated the soldiers captured by the Central Powers worse than the other members of the Entente, regarding them as cowards or even traitors, and that rendered them little or no assistance, which of course was a problem for the other belligerent powers. On the other hand, the Holy See obviously tried to win the soldiers' hearts. Most likely the Pope wanted to polish up his image in view of resolving the Roman question. Since most belligerent parties were unable to adhere to the Hague Convention's stipulations on sustenance of prisoners, the fact that at the same time various non-governmental organizations and neutral states went to aid undoubtedly helped the prisoners. This also goes for the Holy See. Holy See's other interventions, which on the whole nearly caused its financial bankruptcy. The Vatican surely drew political profit from its activities as well, but still, the Holy See was not able to accumulate enough political capital to make progress in the Roman question. The First World War broke with the long-standing European tradition of intra-war diplomacy between the belligerent parties, as the war aims were vastly expanded and the parties involved faced each other on an ideological level as well. The numerous examples of more or less clandestine diplomacy were all the more important. In summer of 1917, Pope Benedict XV threw his head in the ring. On the 9th of August, he sent a peace note to the belligerent parties, which was backdated the 1st of August, the beginning of the war. The Pope did not only demand freedom of the seas and a negotiated peace, but also disarmament and the evacuation of the occupied territories. He concluded his note by saying, "In presenting them, the peace principles, to you, who in this tragic hour hold in your hands the destinies of the belligerent peoples. We are animated by the dear and precious hope that they will be accepted, and that as soon as possible the end of this terrible struggle will be reached. A struggle which every day, even more, appears to be a senseless slaughter. However, this appeal remained without effect. The belligerent powers partly answered evasively and partly did not answer at all. The fact that Germany too answered evasively was crucial. This is all the more surprising since the publication of the note had been preceded by secret negotiations between Pacelli and the German government, which Wolfgang Steglich and Hubert Wolf had reconstructed in detail. These preliminary negotiations failed for two reasons. Firstly, the German government delayed its answer to the secret peace proposals submitted by Pacelli in advance, until the Pope was no longer willing to defer the note's publication. Power struggles between the German political leaders were the main reason for this delay. Secondly, and this was even more important, the Holy See's proposals had been hardly acceptable to the German government and the military command from the very beginning on. Most of the decision makers considered Belgium as an indispensable pledge and for future negotiations and regarded the other proposals reversedly. Symptomatically, William II made the following note at the margin of a letter Benedict had sent him on the 16th of January 1917. Victory first. Moreover, the USA demanded the previous democratization of the Reich in their answer to the peace note. Hence, Benedict's peace initiative failed and the war continued. The catastrophe, which Benedict XV had bemoaned from its very beginning on, went on. The secret mediation plan failed. Reviving the medieval idea of the Pope as a arbiter mundi, Benedict had seen the chance to bring the Holy See back into world diplomacy. However, the secret Treaty of London of 1915, which after pressure from Italy obliged the Entente to exclude the Holy See from future peace negotiations, finally made all attempts futile. Judged by its own expectations, it therefore remained effectless. Yet in the medium term, it gave papacy some moral prestige because Pope Benedict XV clearly and publicly stood up for peace, in contrast to the Roman Catholic Church as a whole. Hence, the German liberal and social democratic press showed respect, the Catholic peace movement referred to him after the war, and even the left-wing liberal Karl Kraus acknowledged Benedict in the last days of mankind. Let me come to the conclusion. The Holy See had two expectations when it rendered humanitarian help to the prisoners of war and started its peace mediations. On the one hand, these actions were no mere propaganda. Benedict XV's attitude, in particular, was characterized by true humanity. The Holy See, as an institution, invested a high amount of economic and political capital. Apart from that, the Holy See, as an actor in world politics, more or less openly pursued political goals. The collateral effects of the Roman Curia expected from all these actions involved gains in Roman question. It was thought, if the Holy See mediated on equal terms between the great powers and won the heart of the Italian people, it could surmount all resistance against its claims. How successful was this policy? This table helps us to evaluate. Undeniably, the material as well as the moral support provided by Pacelli helped the prisoners of war. This is particularly true for the Italians that were materially neglected by their government. However, the Holy See was not able to convert the symbolic capital into a political one. Papacy did not ride the wave of euphoria that washed away the resistance against the solution of the Roman question. Likewise, the Italian government succeeded in repelling the Holy See's attempts to re-enter the international stage by mediating between the belligerent powers. In the end, the wall built by the Treaty of London of 1915 was unsurmountable. Beyond this inner Italian conflict level, the Holy See actually did make profit. In the world public opinion, Benedict XV gained particular popularity. The Roman Curia learned a lesson from that. In the 1920s, for instance, Benedict's successor, Pope Benedict XI, provided material support for the German people when the inflation hit the economy. And during the famine of 1921 and 1922, the Holy See even sent food to the Soviet Union. However, if the Holy See wanted to accumulate symbolic capital, it had to fulfill one condition. The Vatican had to do without religious claims and to disregard the political and religious attitudes of the addressees of its humanitarian support. By doing so, the Curia adjusted to the practice of other non-governmental organizations and neutral states. As many of the religious claims the Catholic Church had were hardly acceptable for modern societies, the Holy See had to conceal them. Churchill was right when he wrote that there certainly were divisions, quote, not always visible on parade, end quote. The popes have many of them, but were they really able to conquer territory? Thank you for your attention.